Welcome to another day in the Matrix. This is Red Pill Podcast 172. I hope you're all having an amazing weekend out there. Lots going on in the world stage. I'm sure you all heard about the event that happened yesterday. So we will be decoding that because it's revealing some important information about what's to come in the near future, specifically in this upcoming month of August. But we'll be getting into that in a moment. But for now, make sure get relaxed, get comfortable, grab yourself a cup of coffee or tea if it's a little bit earlier out there for you, or if it's a little bit later in the day, maybe a glass of wine or beer, or any beverage of your choice. Again, welcome to the Red Pill Podcast. It's so great to have you here with us. And if you're new to the Wolfpack, welcome. If you've yet to get access to our Discord server, just go ahead and send me a direct message on Patreon, and I will reply back to that direct message with your Discord server invite. Please don't comment or email me that information regarding your Discord username. You will need to send me a direct message on Patreon in order for me to provide access. Also, we're doing amazing with the altcoin voting system. This week we'll be covering actually probably a little bit more than 5 different charts, as well as getting into this chart that you're seeing right here, this XRP chart that's covering the entire chart history of XRP going back to 2013. I did cover this in my recent YouTube video, but since we've had lots of volatility and volume spiking in the XRP chart, so we will be covering that. Quick update, letting you all know where I stand on this, a little bit of a recap. Also, because we didn't touch on it last week, I made a note to cover Total 3. So that would be the total market cap chart for the cryptocurrency market minus Bitcoin and Ethereum. Really just focusing on the more speculative altcoins as a whole, seeing what's been going on over the past couple weeks since that deeper pullback that we had at the beginning of this month, and then kind of wrapping up some of my thoughts on that for the broad altcoin market. You're all well aware that I took advantage over the past couple weeks and I made some new venture capital position entries. I talked about that last week, so no need to talk about that today. And let's just get straight into today's episode with this decode on this event that happened yesterday. There was a assassination attempt on Donald Trump. It was on July 13th, and this actually connects to the date of the famous arrest of Donald Trump on August 24th. So we're just taking July 13th and then we're taking August 24th of last year. And what you're going to see with these two dates is that they're 10 months and 19 days apart. That would be 119, removing the 0 using the rules of numerology. And that 119 code is the mirror of 9/11. And 9/11 was symbolic of the two towers, or the two pillars, which connects perfectly to these two rituals, with the first tower being the arrest of Donald Trump and this famous mugshot on August 24th, and then this twin tower, or the second tower, being this assassination attempt yesterday on July 13th. Now the next phase in the ritual requires the number 7, just like building 7 was the next part of that ritual during 9/11 back in the year 2001. And remember, the true 7th month in the calendrical system would be September. Septem, the prefix in Latin, means 7. So this is not actually a 9/11 code, it's a 7/11 code. And just look at how July 13th, right over here, it leaves 171 days in the year. That's the anagram of 7/11. Perfectly synchronized with what's going on here. July 13th and September 11th actually have another connection. Let me show you really quickly. And it's because they have the same date numerology this year. You can see that the double-digit date numerology for July 13th yesterday and 9/11 this year both have a 64 double-digit date numerology and a 19 standard date numerology. This 19 is crucial. Remember, 19 is 1 is A, 9 is I, artificial intelligence, AI. That was part of that whole scheme all along. back in 2020 and over the past 4 years, and it's ramping up more and more. And artificial intelligence is pretty much the number one thing the apex predator can leverage on to manipulate consciousness in this ongoing spiritual warfare. But getting back to this, we all know this number 19 is associated with C19, that ritual that lasted 2 years and 2 months. And remember, C19 was exactly 222 months after 9/11, back in 2001. Let me just quickly show you. We have 3/13/2020, and you're going to see we have this 222 code. So really amazing when you have these codes playing out. Well, let's keep going. We were talking about C19 and this time frame, and you know that Donald Trump was the president during that time. And yesterday was also connected to this upcoming Rosh Hashanah, Hebrew New Year. Let me show you this really quickly. So we're going to go back to 7/13 this year, which was the event that just happened yesterday. And we're going to go to 10/4 of this year. And we have something very important to point out, which is these two dates were 2 months and 22 days apart. This is the last day of Rosh Hashanah. It'll be the official new Hebrew year by this date. And remember, this is a 3-day event, Rosh Hashanah. It starts on the 2nd, which would be also a total solar eclipse. So that's, or an annular solar eclipse, but either or, it's a solar eclipse. It's very powerful. It will be our 4th solar eclipse in our solar cycle, which I've been talking about for a while now. And as we inch closer, I will reveal more information on that. But I already actually gave quite a bit of information yesterday, 2 days ago, in my new YouTube video. So definitely check that out if you haven't. I talked a lot about XRP in that video, but I gave some data behind the 4th solar eclipse of our solar cycle in the end of that video as well. And if anyone has my new crypto decoding blueprint, then you have probably 6 videos covering this solar cycle theory, which I don't even know if I could call it theoretical, because it's been the most accurate way at predicting all the pivot points, all the bull runs, all the bear markets, all the all-time highs, all the bottoms of our bear markets for every single Bitcoin cycle. So it's hard to say theoretical unless this time is different, but so far there's really been nothing different about this cycle either. So now, getting back to this October 4th thing, and remember I just told you moments ago, 9/11 and C19 were exactly 222 months apart. Well, we have July 13th, this event yesterday, tied to October 4th, the last day of Rosh Hashanah, by 2 months and 22 days. So another 222 code. Also, we were talking about this particular day, and we were also talking about 9/11 and how they have this 64 double-digit date numerology. And this is symbolic for this year, but also it's symbolic for this political conversation, because the mirror of 64 is 46, and that's the current president of the United States, Joe Biden. 46th president, but also in Gematria, speaking of the number 64, we have 64 in Joe Biden, right there, basic English ordinal. You don't need to get too fancy with this system. Also, July 13th, this date, is also 60 days before 9/11. And this is very important because we're currently in the 60th year anniversary of the JFK assassination. And what's really wild is connecting July 13th to the assassination date of JFK for this year, if we were to consider that, it's going to give us 4 months and 9 days. Also, we've been talking about this 49 number so much this year. We can see that the anniversary date is a 77 double-digit date numerology. 7 times 7 is 49. And these two events are exactly 4 months and 9 days apart. This ties back to the 49 code. Remember, the 49ers lost the recent Super Bowl in a rematch against the Chiefs. Same outcome as 2020, when that Super Bowl happened just a month before C19 was declared a pandemic. And the moment the 49ers lost this recent Super Bowl against the same team, the Kansas City Chiefs, Bitcoin immediately traded into 49,000. And Joe Biden had this really cryptic post on X with laser eyes saying, just like we drew it up, with alt text, Dark Brandon. Incredibly awkward. Obviously, he did not do it. His handler did that. But why did they make that post right at that time? And I believe it has a lot to do with this 49 code. And these are two famous, well, this was an actual assassination date, and this was an assassination attempt. So it's not like I'm just pulling things out of thin air. I'm literally taking two of the exact dates tied to the exact situation in the same fashion. Also, very polarizing leaders at that time, hence why the intelligence agencies would want to get the Kennedy guy out of the picture. Anyways, getting back to this. Then, in this exact 49 code that we were talking about, we have the mythological character Satoshi Nakamoto turned 49 years old right before the Great American Eclipse, which was on April 8th, but the first full day of that would be April 9th. Gregorian 4-9 date, 49. Also, a lot of people have brought this to my attention, and I realized it a little bit later on that this recent Hurricane Beryl, it took the same exact path, moving from Texas all the way up through the northern part of Louisiana, and then kind of just curving up to the northeast of the United States. It effectively took the same exact path of totality as the solar eclipse back on April 8th, the Great American Eclipse. The one that I've been talking about for a while now, and how you need to keep JFK in mind, because that Great American Eclipse formed an X over the state of Texas. And I brought up how JFK was assassinated in the state of Texas, and we also have RFK Jr. being a part of this election. So this was very symbolic, okay? Especially with what just happened with Hurricane Beryl in Houston. And that was pretty devastating, the amount of people that had to experience that. If you are from Houston, if you know anyone that's from Houston, the Wolfpack is sending positive energy. I mean, I know that it sounds like just words, but we really mean it. It's so tragic to hear about the things that people have to go through because governments and local agencies do not prepare themselves enough for something they know is about to happen, which is also very staged, you know? And there's a lot of elderly people, a lot of people who are pregnant mothers, people who are sick, have illnesses, and they need to have some of these technological luxuries such as air conditioning and access to medicines, and they just don't during these times. So as much as things on the world stage are ritualized and as much as they are pre-planned and scripted, you have to still be compassionate at what's going on here. And it's really sick that the apex predator does this stuff. So from the Wolfpack to you, anyone who is affected by this, just sending our positive energy. But let's get back to this. We were talking about these 4-9 connections. We have the 4 months and 9 days before the anniversary of JFK's assassination is tied to this Trump assassination attempt. And that's very telling to me, the fact that this 4-9 code is coming up again, and it's telling me that this was absolutely a staged ritual. And the last interesting piece of code that I found here for this event yesterday is something you probably all want to know. Like, where is this all connecting to? A little bit later on, I'm going to be getting into that, but I'm going to provide some groundwork here. So we had this recent event, and then we have tying it to the US elections. And we have the exoteric 11/5 date, November 5th of the elections, Super Tuesday. And you can see that these two dates are 115 days apart. Pretty fascinating. You got the 115 and the 115 tied to this event where Donald Trump would be a part of this, if not the outcome would go to him. But I'm not going to get into that now. I just find that to be very fascinating, how we have such a simple piece of code right in front of us. We knew this election date very, very far in advance. And if you just take the 115 and 115, you get the exact date of this assassination attempt. And I was thinking of this to take it a little bit deeper. If you were to go to the periodic table, you have indium it would be rounded up in the atomic mass to 115 if you wanted to get fancy. But I just think that this 49 is right in front of our faces too. The 49th element. And we have this effective 115 code. We have the 115 date for the election 115 days before assassination attempt. So this 49, again, it's just amazing how it's so significant this year in all ways, everything from sports to markets to politics. Continue to use this 49 in your decodes for the rest of this year. It's powerful stuff. And of course, if you're going to do it for crypto, you could do it all the way up until April of next year, because it'll still be within 49 years of Satoshi. And then you can kind of effectively use that specifically for Bitcoin in the crypto market, which is something that I've been doing in the crypto decoding blueprint to come up with a lot of the data that I have for Q1 of 2025. But again, if you happen to have invested in that, you know all of that powerful information. I mean, it's pretty mind-blowing. It's all compiled into something that's nice, user-friendly, easy to digest. So appreciate your support if you have that, and feel free to comment below and let us know any of the key thoughts that you found since utilizing that new blueprint. I would love to know your feedback. Now, one of the things we were mentioning is this 49, and that is 7 weeks. And what I said earlier was keep the number 7 in mind for the next event with Trump or the elections. And I said that it would make sense to have the 7 code in it because we started this decode talking about the Twin Towers and how from his arrest in 2023, August 24th, to the event that happened yesterday, the arrest would be the first tower, the assassination attempt would be the second tower, and then the third ritual would be tied to the number 7. So now we're going to use some of this information and apply it. And that would bring us to the short-term date, which would be the 26th of this month. Including the end date, you have 14 days apart. You also have this being a 77 date numerology, which would be 7 times 7. Again, back to that 49 code. And we also have this 14, which is 2 7. 7 plus 7 is naturally 14. And you also have this being the 208th day of the year. Now, this becomes 28 in the rules of numerology before reduction. And this event that happened yesterday was during the 28th week of the year. So there could definitely be something with that 28. Also, the 2 8s, we've talked about this in the past, this double analemma movement of the sun pattern. Yeah, I can't go too deep into that now, but anytime you're seeing this 88 or you're seeing the 8, that infinity symbol, it's talking about energy balance, all right? 8 being perfectly symmetrical. This is about balance. And I think the moon yesterday was in Libra. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the moon was in Libra yesterday. Libra is symbolic of the scales. The scales is about balance. What happened yesterday was a balance effect. And I do not think that the people in the masses have the consciousness to deal with stuff like this. So they're going to be very explosive. And I'm talking about just general people right now. They're going to be very divided, very polarized. And this is like literally the setup into like a civil war type deal, because when you take out the leadership of a movement, it's more than just the leadership of the people. It's more the leadership of a movement at this point, because ideologically it crosses so many different paths and it gets quite complex, and I don't want to say cult-like, but in many ways it has been. And you guys know me, I'm not a politics guy. I'm not preaching as a politics decoder or to have any intel in what's happening on the world stage in that particular context. But it's because I don't want to get distracted by that stuff. And now when I see things like this happening, I'm aware that all the preparedness that I've done spiritually makes it so when these things happen, I'm not flustered by it. I'm not like emotional towards it. I'm just like, okay, where's the code in all of it? That's the first thing I kind of jump to. I mean, as long as it's not affecting my family and friends and my people directly, I'm not going to start getting all wacky about it, trying to prove some point on the political sphere. It's really quite irrelevant. But I hope you guys out there can protect yourself from what's to come with this, because this just kicked off yesterday. I'm sure it's been getting a lot of drama for on Facebook and all these social media platforms. I myself am just checked out of all of it. I went straight to the decode. I did the decode for this podcast, and I'm going to leave it at that. So just protect yourself right now, because this is just the starting point of the domino effect of what will make us more divided and more polarized, and it will create a lot of conflict internally, and I don't want you guys to go through that again like we all did with C19, where they effectively we divided ourselves by things that really don't matter too much at the end of the day, like masks and jabs, and yeah, not worth ruining families, divorces, all the stuff that occurred. And I think this is going to be another one of those situations, especially for the USA. Well, one thing to mention also about July 26th is that it also happens to be the opening ceremony for the 2024 Olympics, which we've been talking a lot about this year, which ends in the transition into the 33rd week of the year on August 12th. It will be ending on August 11th, closing ceremony. But that's really powerful. We've been talking a lot about this lately. This is a powerful master number, and it's the center of attention for me in the short term. So using all this code, I believe I found the next key date that matters a lot, and it's going to be August 15th. So let me show you really quickly what's going on with this date. August 15th is 33 days after July 13th, this assassination attempt yesterday. And August 15th will also be during the 33rd week of the year, right after the 33rd Olympics is finished. And what makes August 15th very special, right over here, is that it's the day leaving 138 days in the year. And if you go to Gematria calculator and you type in Donald Trump, you're going to see this equals 138, his name, which is the number that follows 137. And 137 is your 33rd prime number, making the following day naturally this 137 days left in the year. And I think this matters a lot. This is going to be the next powerful dates, in my opinion, the 15th and 16th of August. I'm going to add some more to this as well, because you guys heard me talk about the number 49 a lot earlier. Well, let's go to Rosh Hashanah, which is the 3rd of October, and you're going to see they're 49 days apart. How perfect is that? Right after the next solar eclipse on the Hebrew New Year that is wrapping up the year 5783 or 84, which adds up to 24, and this is 89 days left in the year, which is the 24th prime number. Perfect connection. This is wild. Also, remember, this Hebrew month is Tishri, the 7th month. We're talking about 7 weeks before the transition into the 7th month of the Hebrew calendar. Crazy. This is a crazy date, and I've just given you a couple connections so far. So if we connect this to the 2nd, including the end date, then you're still getting that 49 connection to the solar eclipse that'll be happening. And one thing that worries me a little bit about August 15th is when we connect it to the mirror date of this, which would be February 10th. Not including the end date, we have 187 days apart, and this is the kill code. So this was Chinese New Year, the year of the dragon. 187 is the murder code. This does worry me a little bit. And I'm going to be vulnerable and say I really should have considered this in the decodes that I shared the weeks prior to July 5th, which was absolutely a big decode for me, where I got the date accurately, but I made a miscalculation on the direction of the crypto market. Even though it was spot on for the stock market, I admit I was wrong about what happened with the crypto market specifically. But the reason I bring this up is because July 5th, this date that I was just mentioning, it was the 187th day of the year, the murder code. I should have considered this with crypto, especially while we're in Satoshi's super cycle of 49 years old and heading into Satoshi's Jubilee. So all in all, I learned a lot from that decode, and I'm humbly exploring this code with curiosity in the process. And I'm very blown away at how incredible this system is for discovering key dates. But now with what happened on July 5th, for the crypto market with that washout liquidation ritual that happened, the 187 code, and then we have 187 days after Chinese New Year, or the 187th day of the Chinese year, the new Chinese year of the dragon. That concerns me, especially with all the other connections that we have. The connection to Trump assassination yesterday, or assassination attempt, I should say, excuse me, by 33 days. Then we have this happening during the 33rd week of the year, leading into the day that leaves 137 days in the year, which is the 33rd prime number. And this is happening right after the 33rd Olympics. I mean, how many 33s can I bring into this? Oh, wait, the assassination attempt yesterday was also tied to the elections by, if you see, 3 months, 3 weeks, and 3 days. Absolutely wild how scripted this was. And if you've been following along for even just a couple months, you can't deny the power of this decoding system in regards to forecasting future dates. It's pretty incredible to watch it all unfold. The death of the Iranian president, literally the day that we mentioned it to happen, and to expect a ritual with Iran, that event happened. The burning of the Copenhagen Stock Exchange building on the exact date I mentioned to expect a fire ritual like Notre Dame in Paris, and the Danish press literally called it their Notre Dame moment. Or the March 13th significance for this year, the year of the dragon, because of the dot-com bubble back in the year 2000. When you research that, you'll see that the bubble popped on March 13th. And this year we had, so far, it's Bitcoin's all-time high daily close. It's just crazy to watch these dates play out the way they do. So there we have it, family. We have this upcoming July 26th, the opening ceremony of the Olympics, right after the July full moon. And then we have to keep in mind this Olympics is likely to be ritualized, similar to the Munich massacre, which I believe was in 1973. Watch my Year of the Dragon Decoded here if you haven't already. And then we have the 32nd and 33rd weeks of the year wrapping up this Olympics. And we have that key date now of August 15th into August 16th being this 33 days after this recent attempt. Just keep this stuff in mind. We have a lot going on now in the world. There's going to be a lot more to come on the world stage between now and the upcoming elections. There's already so many elections that have been happening just over the past couple months. And I think that this event that happened yesterday was so powerful symbolically. It could be causing the remnants of a deeper division in the American people, which, again, American politics, the American president is the most known political leader on earth, arguably, besides Putin. So this is going to be so polarizing right now. And I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to do everything I can to focus on what I believe matters most. And if the shit hits the fan at any moment, I have prepared myself in all ways to take care of it, and I hope you guys have too. And here you have a community, a family of people that are vulnerable, keeping everyone updated, being open-minded to what's happening. We're not picking sides here. It's no cult of what's better or what's worse, or who are the good guys or who are the bad guys. That's not how this works. This world stage is a scripted play. You gotta wake up to the script. Like we see in The Wizard of Oz, the dog pulls the curtain back and shows you who's running the show, and it's just the illusion of power, which is Oz. Don't let that consume you, okay? So all in all, whenever we talk about these things, we're always going to bring in that spiritual concept to it, because it's quite important right now, probably more than ever. Now let's get into the market and review these charts, starting with XRP, to follow up on my last video and my last update post, which I know you guys really appreciated. Especially crucial now with XRP bouncing around 40% since the early July pullback less than a couple weeks ago. So we're looking at this main chart here. Again, just a quick update on what's going on here. We have all the phases numbered. I have the peak of the first cycle, the peak of our last cycle matching. We have 2 being the absolute low of the cycle, followed by a rally that's a lower high or a bull trap. You can see that here. You can see that here clearly. Then when we come down to phase 4, we have a higher low. We don't go lower than this phase 2. And then we pop into this pretty long-term arduous horizontal trading range, which we build a support on, we build a resistance. This horizontal trading range is much tighter than the past trading ranges. As you can see here, they're exactly around 30%, give or take 5% or so. Remember, we're talking about crypto here, and we're really focusing on daily closes, not necessarily just wicks or tails to the upside or downside. But these ranges are nearly mimicking, and the movement pattern is nearly mimicking. And what I wanted to point out is that I believe we are here. We dropped out of the lower support, made a new lower low, which ends up being a bear trap, and then we pop back into this horizontal trading range. Now that we have that all laid out, and you can see what XRP is doing today, which is literally bouncing back into the trading range after making a lower low below the supports. Let's zoom into what happened over here, which I think is very fascinating because you see how even though we got above, we back tested the support. I would love to see this. If we get a back test of this support line, that would be the most important back test and healthy correction to see. And we also tend to see this happen a lot where we get a back test of a line, a support line, or a resistance line before a confirmed breakout. And right here, we had a little bit of that essence going on into August, popped back up literally perfectly in like a 2-day candle, and then just really low volume, low volatility, moseyed on down to the back test and then popped straight up. And I mean, it doesn't look like much, but fuck, this was a 50% move in 2 weeks. So this type of energy right now where we popped back above the support and then right now we're up. I'm talking about a potential back test and how that would be healthy. So let's look at what we're doing today. We've popped up. We haven't had a back test, but we had this clear rejection. So I want to show you guys what could be in the cards for XRP at this time. I believe I have a really good chart showing you where this, yep, oh my God, it's crazy. So if you've been following along on the XRP analysis, you'll know that I've not moved these trend lines. I've deleted some trend lines that were taking up a lot of space and making a lot of noise, but we have the C19 crash here. We have the Flare token distribution airdrop thing. This is the big correction that happened from the SEC versus Ripple case. And then we had our bull run, our alt season for everything else, pretty much besides XRP. And then we corrected back into the bear market. All of the bear market, we held this trend line, which is just back testing these 2 critical points here. And then just in April, we broke below it, which is fascinating because April was a really solid month of performance back in 2021. But we broke below it, and then we've started to treat it now as a resistance, and that's clear all over here. And just yesterday, we popped up. I think there was at one point, XRP was like 18 to 19% up. Got rejected on this. But you see what's going on now is we're approaching the apex of this pattern, which started on the July, it started on this July pump when we had XRP no longer deemed as a security, and we corrected since. We had lower high and another lower high. Technically, this apex and what we're doing right now means that we're doing something called a kickback, where you break out of a pattern, but then you kick back into the pattern really impulsively. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. So we're not really trying to pattern trade this. We're just revealing the fact that first and foremost, you always need to be more focused on horizontal trading ranges, never on patterns. Horizontal trading ranges are everything. This is why we use Wyckoff method. And what we're watching right now was a pretty much repeat of this move back here. A break below this macro support that lasted effectively like 400 days. We're at the same exact timing of that right now. And this kickback energy means that if we can start recovering and breaking above this resistance line, which we know is 70 cents, that this was probably one of the most important moves for XRP to do at this time, because this is a very typical move for crypto, where we get an exaggerated correction, liquidations happen, lots of panic selling, and then the market maker does the opposite. They trap a lot of shorts. So I'm sure a lot of shorts were building up over these 2 to 3 days right here. And then the market maker said nope and just sent it in the other direction to then liquidate all of those leverage traders. So this is just a tactic. And remember, the market maker has hundreds of year time horizon. They're not worried about a 3-year cycle or a 4-year. That's not how it works. These are families that have bloodlines going back to Sumerian times. These people invented money. They invented the mint that literally melts the metal to create the coins. This is not something that they're anyways, you get where this is going. My point here is that it's just happening now in crypto in a different fashion, but it's the same scheme. It's the same thing, just going on in a new asset class. And it's pretty clear to me that this type of move now is very much mimicking this, and something that I had that was once theoretical has now come to life, which is really cool to watch it happen. But what I would like to really see, though, is a back test of this level here around 50 cents again, maybe 48, 49. That could be in alignment with what is going on with this upcoming full moon. I'm not trying to predict that movement right now, because if you were not buying XRP for the last 2 to 3 months, then I don't know what the hell to tell you. Like, or if you're just not interested in this asset at all, then that's fine too. But I don't know if I would call it foolish, but it's not so wise to have no XRP. For me, it's my second biggest position. I do that because I have a very long-term idea of what's going on here for the world stage and the infrastructure of the global economy and economic policy and the tokenization of our whole financial system. So I have my own investment thesis. I'm not trying to convince you to change yours or to have, but I think a lot of people right now over the past couple of weeks have been like losing hope in XRP because the price isn't doing what they want it to do. And that's the opposite of investing. With investing, you want to get into something that is undervalued. Yeah. Or if you want to short something that is very overvalued, that's a strategy as well. This thing is very undervalued compared to the holistic cryptocurrency space. And it's undervalued while it has an immense use case and actually quite an vast level of infrastructure already built out. Whilst a meme coin has zero besides just momentary belief. There's really no use case for any of it, and it's just a cultural moment, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with playing that game if you know how. The same way there's a way to play the XRP game, and we've done it here many, many times at WatersAbove. Selling this move over here when it popped up to the 83, 86, 89 cent. We did it over back in the beginning of the Shemitah in September of 2021. We did it all throughout here in April. I mean, I was very vocal about these things, and all throughout that time, I wasn't loved for sharing that, but you got to sell when it is in alignment with your trading plan, because the only thing that matters is your trading plan, not what some influencer is saying on X.com. So this is a very important move that we've just had, because I think it was to liquidate a lot of people that were building short positions, believing that we would dump lower into the low 30-cent range. And now that that's probably out of the way, we have to see how this is going to go, because this is a level that XRP has been getting rejected at now for pretty much 100 days, over 3 months. And because we're kicking back into this crucial support line that's been in place since over 4 years. This is a very precarious kind of place for XRP to be getting rejected at. So I shared in the last YouTube video the timing of all of this. I mentioned August, but I was also very transparent that August is one of the worst performing months for XRP. So please, 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 you always need to use data. You can't just use your theories, all right? August is a really bad month for XRP typically. And whenever it's a good month, it becomes a distributional top into September. So what this can all go down like is something like this, where we have a pump into August. September is a distributional top. We only get corrected back into like the low 50s, and then we have that move. Okay? It might not be this just straight line move out of the pocket like we had back in March, April 2017. Again, this is all contingent on Bitcoin. So this is the perfect time to pivot into Bitcoin and talk more about that, because my main thesis stands on Bitcoin. We must have, or on XRP, we must have Bitcoin price discovery in order to have XRP pump to the upside higher than just this standard resistance line that we've been getting rejected at for over 400 days. So let's get into Bitcoin. We have some pretty nice buyback energy going on, although over the weekend I don't like to see that at all, because Bitcoin's trading at 60K and CME is at 57. So we're going to have this big gap to the upside, to the downside, excuse me, likely. We're likely to fill that gap, and that would be the best thing right now. In July, we have this sideways month typically, so it would be best if we just come down, fill that gap. XRP comes down like 53, 50, maybe 49 cents, like on a really sharp move around the full moon, and then send it into the August new moon. That would be such a classic play. And it feels like over the past couple weeks, with this bigger correction down into a lower low for Bitcoin, this whole move is that bear trap that we got back in August over here of 2023. And I talked about that in my last video as well. I know that it feels that way because of the dump that we just had on the July new moon. That was very unorthodox. That does not happen often. It usually only happens during a lunar eclipse during a lunar cycle, and we're not in that right now. So the only times that I really see a new moon dump that's very volatile is moments where we have some sort of thing happening behind the scenes energetically. We could get into more stuff astrologically, although it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, because these things become incredibly unpredictable when you're watching it happen in just something like Bitcoin and crypto, but it's the opposite in the stock market. You know, we see the stock market pumping on the same day that Bitcoin's getting wiped out. Then it becomes really, really hard to like dial it in. You know what I mean? So we're doing our best here. Of course, generally we have this theory that it will take up until October's solar eclipse in order to see some real deal price discovery. That's how it went last cycle. That's how it went the cycle before. And that could very well be how it goes this time too. And generally, the longer cycles take, they're healthier. This is very nice to hear. If cycles just move up parabolically in a straight line, it's not healthy. And not healthy means really sharp corrections, and it doesn't give you time to really play the market as a sophisticated investor. You really have to have a solid trading plan in place and remove your emotions as much as possible. So needless to say, we're getting about a 60K spot Bitcoin right now, and we have CME sitting at 57,800. There's going to be a gap if Bitcoin closes where it's at, but I do like the fact that Bitcoin was able to pop up, although we do have these prior supports that were in play, our monthly support, and I'm not really getting bullish again until we break this level right here on the daily close. So I want to see a 63K daily close for Bitcoin. And then if I could see a 66K daily close for Bitcoin, I believe that will be the moment that we start to break higher. Until then, we're just in the lower range of a pretty deep pullback for Bitcoin, probably the deepest pullback we've had over the past 2 years, maybe even longer. 27% correction. Like, how much was this pullback here? Yeah, pretty much. This is about as deep as the correction that we had to end the bear market. That's what we've had recently, from our all-time high down to this level on July 5th, the date that we decoded. So let's look at the weekly. Let's see if we're seeing anything on our moving averages. Again, quite a big green candle right now. A little bit of a buyback. That was what we wanted. I shared that on my last red pill as well. How we want like an impulsive buyback, and we want to get back above the 21 exponential. Oof. Okay, so we are holding the 34. I have a very hard time believing that CME is going to open later and Bitcoin's just going to drain to 55K. I'm pretty confident that's not the case, although anything's possible in the matrix. What I shared in my last Red Pill podcast is that I want to see Bitcoin impulsively get back above the 21 EMA, and then I'll feel a lot better about what's happening here, especially with that 63K daily close. And if we can get that 63 weekly close like in this month of July, that would be amazing. We just have to see how Bitcoin reacts to this full moon. Considering that we had an incredibly bearish new moon, and this month is a very wild card month in a lot of cases. And so far, it's been pretty weird start. Just like at the beginning of May, we had our low 49 days after the Bitcoin all-time high back in March 13th. And it was like in the first day of May Day. I remember I released a video for that. So we got this really early July correction, and off of that move was an incredible buying opportunity. And that seems to have been the case this time around as well. So anyone that was taking advantage of buying earlier this month of July, good move, because it's more likely that you got in at a discount than us expecting much, much deeper discounts moving forward. I hope that makes sense. The weekly chart's looking pretty good, but getting back above the 21 EMA is crucial at this point. All right, so this is great. This is very, very good, guys. We're looking at the 2-week chart right now, and Bitcoin is back above the 13 EMA. I would love to see this hold. It does kind of suck that the CME chart is going to be opening below this. But yeah, holding the 2-week 13 EMA would be crucial. I want to see these moving averages hold probably for the remainder of the bull run, honestly, because that's how they looked back in the last bull run, and that's typically how they look in bull runs. You can see what I mean by the EMA band holding is that the blue stays above the orange, which stays above the red. And when you see it flip right there, that was the bottom. Okay, so here you had your C19 crash. You have the blue above the orange, above the red. Right when you see the flip, boom, huge correction. So now that we've got this flipped in a bullish posture where the 13 is above the 21, above the 34, that's looking nice. And I would like us to hold that. That would feel a lot more strength in this asset in the macro. Let's go to the daily. All right, well, the daily bounce has been nice, even though, yeah, yesterday was a weekend, today's a weekend, and we're getting back above the 21. So I can't really flip super bullish on this just yet. I would like to see the wolf cross, of course. You guys know the 8 above the 55 would be amazing. We had that happen back here. We had the August new moon drop. Here we had the July new moon drop. And then we had this sideways phase where once we got that wolf cross right here, you can see it. It was literally on the October solar eclipse. And we have an it was a couple weeks before the October solar eclipse. But we do have an October solar eclipse this year too. It would be kind of unfortunate to have us drag out at these lows for that much longer. But even if Bitcoin can pop up to like the 70s, the high 60s into 70K region, you know altcoins are going to move up like 200% from that. So that's why I've been taking advantage of these altcoin dips. Super, super important time, especially when these altcoins are down 60 to 70% in some instances. So I'm going to leave the analysis at that. I'm not feeling that Bitcoin can go much lower right now. I feel pretty damn good about this recent correction. We had this we had this descending kind of parallel channel that was in play now, and we have effectively bounced out of it. But it's hard to really call that until we break this level right here at 63K. So 63K stands. You guys could take note of that. And for now, as long as we're holding this 55K at the bottom on the daily closes, we're fine. If Bitcoin was to breach that 55K, then the lower 50K area could be in play. It's just more likely that this is our low for now. Ethereum having a really nice bounce out of this corrective level. It was the same thing back over here and the same thing back over here. So Ethereum is really liking this 2,900 area. You can see how many times it's been in this range. I mean, it's like 150 days effectively. Once we've gotten above it over here, we've been systematically returning back to that support. And we did it again recently, stronger than Bitcoin. Bitcoin came down even lower than the April, May lows. So ETH is looking awesome right now. And this could turn out to be a huge W pattern where we would know to call it a W if we can start breaking above $4,000. And then I assume you would have a pretty solid measure move. Give me 1 second. Let me just see how this would look. Down from the 888. Yeah, I'll bring you into a new all-time high, right? Yep. Barely a new all-time high, but a new all-time high nonetheless. So would be very nice to see that W play out. And I can't really update too much because it's really contingent on Bitcoin's move at this time. If Bitcoin can hold these levels, I think even if Bitcoin did a retest back to, what did we say earlier, 56, if it wanted to go that low and still hold the supports, ETH might only come down to 3,000. It might hold all of these supports and not go any lower for the rest of the cycle. It's been very, very strong. So I give that to Ethereum. It's a big reason why I keep ETH in my top 3. It's solid. It holds a lot of structure in the overall portfolio, especially during these larger corrective phases. It's just smarter to have, I think, in the second position for those that are a little bit newer to investing. But even for me that's been around for enough time now and am skilled and have zero emotion about what's going on, I really like to have ETH in the top 3 for balance. Also, ETH is useful in trading out of ETH. Anyways, let's look at the weekly and then wrap up this analysis. Yeah, nice bounce on the weekly. I would say if we can get above these candles over here of late April, 3,300 Ethereum, then that would look very, very solid, and this would be a macro W setup. So this looks like a macro W to me. This is not a head and shoulders forming as we speak. It's none of that shit. This looks like it's literally playing out to be one of these kind of backup phases from the prior cycle. Okay, let's move on. We're doing total 3 really quickly. No. 1 second. Back to 600 billion already. Fuck. Okay, so we have total 3. We are in this red box timed territory, which is until September. We broke below this major trend line, this red trend line. I should turn it white because I can't really see what the hell is going on. Let me turn off these moving averages. Don't need them. Okay, so we broke below this major trend line that was in play going pretty much back to November, and it took us about 214 days. After breaking this trend line, we've come back to this lower low of this support right here, filled out the support zone, and now we've bounced back to the top of the first support zone, first support area, which is around 600 billion. And if we are to clear this 616, 617, then this will look like a spring. Okay, so this would be your buying climax right here. This is your selling climax. This is your automatic rally, and this is your spring. And the spring would kind of finish up like this. It would become a test, go higher, perhaps even something distributional for a moment, and then have a little bit of a backup phase after it reaches this level right here. Okay, because that's where we were trying to hold before the breakdown. So you want to look to these horizontal levels, and I think the way that I drew it was nearly perfect in regards to the somewhat of the structure that's to be played out. So getting back above this level and playing out here would be great, but if we get rejected here and come down here into the full moon, buy like buy alarm, because this was all buys anyways. Anytime you break below some of these key levels right here and you're getting oversold, don't sleep on that. Like we were tapping oversold at 30 on the daily RSI on total 3. That's a gift. So yeah, just keep this stuff in mind, guys. Really fascinating that we had this style of Wyckoff play out with a very clean schematic. I love when it's nice and simple and you don't need to overthink it too much. But really what we need is to get back above 700 billion. that's when the party would get started again. That's your automatic rally level. Getting above 700 billion would be your SOS phase, your sign of strength. But for now, we're in the process of, I believe, completing our spring phase. We just have to wait and see. Does this turn over to be a short-term correction, which looks perfectly like a spring, by the way, and some sort of inverse head and shoulders if you wanted to look at it that way. But generally, next phase is your test. So look at it for that. If we turn around, buy, test, SOS, and then keep it moving past the October solar eclipse. Now let's get over to BitTensor. I don't think I've ever covered this project. It's called Tau. How much data do we have? Oh, okay. Cool. Lots of data on this one. This is going to be a little tough, okay, because this is launched in 2023, so we have at least a little over a year and a half. Perfect back test on this left shoulder. I'm just going to draw some rays real quick, so you guys can kind of copy me if you'd like, so you could see what I'm up to. Okay, so these are the two key levels here, because we have this being your first rejected area, this being your back test, which is in alignment with this November low. Then we popped above it, we came back to this trend line, and then had a little bit of time seeing, can we hold it? But we couldn't. And we broke down and came right back into the same trend line. So don't get fancy, guys. You don't need 100 lines on your chart. This is the zone to be played with right now. And another thing you can do is draw a parallel channel in here if you'd like, so you can see where the heart line is. So I'm going to draw this out until October. We'll leave it on the chart for fun. And you see we've been getting all these rejections at the heart line after we broke below it. So you need to keep that in mind. And getting back above this, I think, has a lot to do with the fibs. So we're going to pull a fib now. And you can see we're exactly at the 236. Okay, guys? So we want to get into an automatic rally vibe. Something like this. Something explosive soon, but I don't think we're out of this corrective phase just yet. Now, one thing is this shit is at all-time highs. It's in price discovery, and it's recently had a 74% correction, just kind of tapping into the oversold area. I don't know if I feel comfortable buying something like this because very limited chart history. Excuse me. Yes, it had a cool 250% rally into March, but now it's down, 70% or something. I believe there was a lot of buying up here, somewhere around 650. So yeah, it's pretty clear to me that once this thing topped out, it's become just a sell-off opportunity for whoever had any profits from this horizontal trading range back here at $60. Now, if you got into this shit back in the fall of 2023, then shit, man, you made 1,500% if you were 1,000% if you were able to get into any of this zone that most people were buying in, probably. Yeah, I don't necessarily feel super confident that this is worth getting into at this time. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I'm going to leave this here, but the one thing to be very, very honest about is if this can't hold, if $200 can't hold and this starts closing dailies below 200, this thing can slide so much lower. And the reason that this thing went up in the first place is because of Bitcoin moving up, because I could see the dates and everything. It's matching so perfectly. Off of the October solar eclipse into a little bit before or a month prior to the following solar eclipse in April, is when it made all of its gains. Then the moment that time frame was over, which was right here, literally right here, this thing went on to lose almost 70%. A lot of altcoins did this. So this is only going to thrive again in the next alt season moment. Keep in mind what I shared about Total 3, about it coming up into this level and coming down again, perhaps for a potential double bottom, a micro W pattern in play. But if this can't hold that level, it could definitely slide deeper, as it's been sliding deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper along the way to its macro support. I'm not personally too interested in something like this, too limited in chart history, and there's plenty of other opportunities. And if you were buying back here in May, June, maybe even up to the October timeframe of 2023. Just hold this thing if you didn't get a chance to sell it up here, because the odds are you're going to be in a very nice profits leading into the finality of this bull run. But I would not put more than 3% in my portfolio with a project like this. Now we're moving on to Fetch AI. All right, what's going on here? Oh, okay, this is a project that went into price discovery, continued higher. We have this major support trend line, which could literally be getting back tested soon. Let me turn this on to area and see. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good to me. So from this high to where we are today is about, okay, it's had a 70% correction. Isn't this wild? Like, I told everyone before we even got here to these corrections back in Q1 of this year, I said, with the way that the crypto market is moving right now, ever since the October solar eclipse, I said, get ready for a 60 to 70% pullback on all the altcoins at some phase soon. And then the moment Bitcoin rolled over and leading into just the beginning of this month, we've seen most altcoins, even the ones that have went much higher compared to the prior cycle, have had 60 to 70% corrections. Just unbelievable to watch. Anyways, where we're at now, again, I'm not really too interested in projects that are coming back to, that are at all-time highs. But there's nothing wrong with this, and there's a positive thing to be said here, which is that you see this rejection right here, all of these rejections, which led to the end of the bull run. It seems that we've come back to that zone and back tested it, and that's healthy. It's very good. It's way better that this asset came back to backtest some of these prior all-time high levels instead of just raging to the upside in a straight line. This is healthy. So clearly this backtest is needed on the way to the 1618, which is around $9 for a fetch. And can this thing go higher? Of course. Of course. This bear market almost ended identical to Solana too. So that's something else that I find very interesting. Wow, 3,000% in like a little over a year. Incredible. Buying the selling climax of any bear market is always pretty legendary. It's just hard because the selling climax for Bitcoin sometimes isn't the same for all the other altcoins. Some altcoins took until October to bottom out. In this case, this one had an automatic rally in the middle. Really, there must be a community behind this. There must be a community behind this that actually is pouring their money into this, and that's good. It's like Caspa. It's the opposite of what's happening with XRP. XRP is a lot of talk, very little investing, sadly. But that's obviously the case when you look at the charts. That end, Ripple is clearly selling on investors. But needless to say, this type of move right now with the backtest on the prior all-time highs is nice to see. It's very healthy. I would keep the upside target the same, somewhere around 9. And that's another 600, 700% move to the upside. So that looks really good. But keep this 888 in mind. If this is to move into the next phase where Bitcoin regains dominance and starts to steal a lot of mojo away from the altcoin market, you'll see that slide a little bit deeper for some of these more speculative altcoins, even the ones that have been doing really well. There's nothing weird about an 80% correction during a mid-cycle bull run correction on an altcoin. It's very, very normal stuff. Happened all the time in the last cycle. Okay, now as promised, because I have a lot of people that have been reaching out to me about this, we're going to do a quick analysis on Pulse and Pulse X. Lots of people want to know my take on this, so I'm going to be very blunt and say that this is absolutely no different than what's going on in the prior Pulse, the prior p-hex analysis. Let me just show you real quick. It's the same chart. I get a couple people that are like every single week, they keep asking me to do this, but it's like there is no difference. I'm just gonna be blunt. Yeah, it's not looking good. It's the same. It's literally the same. It's the same. The spring is just not as deep, but for the sake of it, We had an 80, Jesus Christ. Okay, an 88% correction, followed by an automatic rally phase, followed by entering a spring phase, another 80% correction. Jeez. And this thing is still like has gone month after month after month after month lower. I have no idea what's going on in the Hex community. Do they even exist anymore? Like, what's going on here, guys? I used to get invites all the time from people to do interviews and stuff like this, but nobody wants to cover this anymore. Is this like they've given up? Is it the end? I'm not being sarcastic. I really am curious because there was quite a community at one point, and then this breakdown happened right here in Hex, eHex. Holy shit. This thing is back to square one. Yeah, so this breakdown happened. And then a lot of people were saying that, oh, it's because Richard Hart said that this is over and that you want to put it all into another project. And then this other project started pumping. And then now it's also equally as down. And it's like, what the fuck just happened? You rotated all your stuff into another thing that has also lost 80% since you rotated it at the command of the person who's running the show. It's very confusing to me. I mean, maybe I got the story a little mixed up, but that's how I was presented the story. It's very confusing. This is like a cultural moment, I think. Hex had a moment back in the last bull run during alt season. A lot of things did. I mean, FTX did. We saw how that went. Terra Luna did. We saw how that went. Is this becoming another situation where there's like a denial phase and we're just watching these charts slowly be sold off by the people who used to hold it up? I mean, I don't know. I hear people talk about the T shares and this, that, and the third, but these charts are all looking identical to me. Here's PulseX. It's the same story. There's nothing different about this. These are massive moves. 93%. Let's be generous. Another 80% correction off of this moment. This is a really fucked up type of bull trap. Yeah, so I don't know what to say, man. I feel like this is a very sketchy investment. It's very sketchy, and I don't like the leadership here. The outrage marketing. It's not cool. It's like a one-hit wonder type vibe. It's never cool. Following something where the leadership is very materialistic and wearing Gucci tracksuits and showing you all the fancy stuff they have. That's never going to work long term. It works momentarily, gets a lot of attention momentarily, but it's clear in the results of what's happening with these charts that this is catastrophic. Like, seriously. I mean, dude, this thing's breaking down below the April 2020 lows. So it's lost 99.99% of its value. It's not good, man. I think it's time for people to just reassess if you're in this project. Stop putting too much more money in this if you think you kind of like make up for your losses by buying the dip. There's so many other opportunities out there. Sometimes you just got to go, okay, let's not get lost anymore and be out of the denial phase. I'm hoping that I'm not coming off as disrespectful right now. That's not what I'm trying to do. I think everything I pointed out was factual for the most part. If it was slightly off kilter, it's just because I don't have the full-blown story and awareness. But at the end of the day, I don't really even need those stories because I see what's happening in the charts. And these are not lying. So yeah, be cautious out there, family. I know that some of these even XRP has gone through this, where there's a lot of prana being poured into the XRP community. They believe they're in the right thing, and they have 90% XRP portfolios, and there's nothing wrong with that. You will have your time to shine. Trust me. This project always pumps randomly at least a couple 100%, but a 90% portfolio in XRP means that you missed out on so many other opportunities that also have a conversation in the future economy, not just XRP. So it's this tribalism thing that I think sucked a lot of people into the Pulse chain and Hex community, and just watch out for that stuff. That's really all I want to say here. There's not too much analysis I could share on something that's just perpetually selling off. I mean, at best, if this is a spring phase, which it's so fucking hard to say on something that has this type of chart structure. But a spring could go deeper. It could go all the way down to the 4 zeros and 3. 00003. Could start trading all the way back where this thing launched. And you might say no, but yes, because it happened here on this asset. It's all kind of the same, moving very similarly. It's just, it's nobody who got in this at the beginning is really benefiting anymore, are they? It's like you're at a net loss already on this. So yeah. Anyways, I don't want to, I'm not trolling right now. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. It has nothing, that's not it. It's the Red Pill podcast. You wanted the red pill. Here it is. Now let's move on to LCX. I believe I've covered this not super recently, but at least 3 or 4 months ago. Nice. Okay, this is good. Okay, so we have a fib pulled from this swing high to swing low. We have an automatic rally. And then after our automatic rally, we had this couple of months, maybe 3 months. Yeah, around 3 months of below this major trend line, around 5 cents. And then we popped above that really in a very straight line fashion. This head and shoulders is in play. It's already finished and it's back at the 0.5 fib. This is excellent. This correction, I suppose, is 70%, almost 65%. And we're back testing this automatic rally. This is great. Okay, so this is nice to see. I don't know if I have the full chart history on this, but it's okay. We do have enough data to work with back from 2021. And I like to see a back test of the prior automatic rally. So this Christmas tree-like AR that we got is actually something that XRP did back in 2014. You could see it right here. You see that? That's kind of what this vibe is over here. When we get those, it's really nice to back test them on the way of breaking out. So this has broken out clearly. It's made its way up to the top of the golden pocket, formed this head and shoulders. It's effectively broke down, which I will assume it's within the measured move target, but it's at this key level of the 0.5 fib. So needless to say, if we cannot hold this level, naturally you go down to 10 cents at the 382, but it doesn't need to. It's already had enough of a correction, in my opinion. And if it was to break down lower, then you should just dollar cost average. You never buy everything at once. You break up your buys into a minimum of 5 entries, which is what I tend to do. And then you could get in a little bit now, a little bit on the way down, and then you kind of like have your whole strategy built around 10 cents. In that case, you might never get 10 cents or 11 cents. You might only get a pullback to maybe 13. But I'm letting you know that this was enough of a pullback. And that's nice because after this, you have the 1618 ahead. I mean, if this is really the highs, I'm not quite sure. I'm limited in data on this one. But I mean, at least $2, I would see this being in the cards. Let's see how much of a percentage move that is. Yeah, it's about 1,300%. So off the full move from supports up to 2, it's about a 5,000% move. 2,500 to 3,000% is usually what we see in the first big surge of an alt season. So keep that in mind. Now we're going to wrap this up really quickly with eCash. Ticker symbol XEC. Never heard of this one. So this is brand new. We do have data from the prior cycle. Topped out at September 2021. Very weird. But now we're back pretty much where this thing launched, in the same month that it launched in back in 2021. 3 years later, it's at the same price. Fascinating. All right, well, we've had, it's a very long trading range. I'm going to go ahead and pull the fib down to here because these scam wicks to the downside, I just have no idea if I could confirm them. And then I assume we have a little bit of a trend going on here. Doesn't need to be perfect. This is an altcoin. An altcoin already with chart glitches, so do your best with these trend lines. But I like this trend, and it's around the 236. To me, that's healthy. We already had our automatic rally kind of vibe over here, getting very close to the golden pocket. After the golden pocket, it's had a, sorry, I'm having some problems. Okay, yeah, we had a 70% correction. Boom. It's what I've been talking about. And around this critical level, this is like a buy territory. So just from where we are right now up to the prior all-time high is 1,000% move. This is the only chart I've looked at so far that looks like an opportunity based on where it's positioned at right now in the big picture. But the reason why I wouldn't buy this thing is because it doesn't have enough chart history for me. And I don't really know if it has it does have some Saturnian symbolism, which might be very good for next year. We have this blue and white. It's very common in the dark blue, especially with the Saturnian symbolism. I mentioned it a little bit earlier because the symbol's a hexagon. It's an E, but it's like shaped like a hexagon, kind of like chain link. Again, I cover all of this in my crypto decoding blueprint. But yeah, I mean, the one thing I like to see is when I'm measuring up to the prior all-time high and I'm looking at least 1,000%, that's wild. I mean, because then you don't even need a bank on price discovery. And if it was to just make it slightly above price discovery, you're talking about like a 1,500% move. So that's really good. And this correction was needed. The way that this moves, and this chart is not my favorite looking. The way that it's moving isn't my favorite. It really likes this support level over here at this 236. So I don't know how much longer it could coil up here. It's pretty damn close to launch time. And if this can get above these levels over here into this golden pocket, that would be when I suspect this to start quickly moving into the 888 fib, retesting prior all-time highs, and then make it into price discovery. And you're looking at like a 1,500% move. So I'm going to wrap this up here. I had so much that I shared today in this podcast, everything with this decode to kick things off. I hope you guys appreciated that. It's been fun putting together some of the pieces in all of this. As I said, we have the upcoming Paris Summer Olympics, 33rd Olympics, kicking off on that key date of July 26th that I mentioned. 14 days after this event that happened yesterday. 14 is 2 sevens. We had the 77 date numerology on that date. Fire symbolism in the Olympics logo, and then we have that 32nd to 33rd week of the year. I'll continue to track and trace that along the way. There's a lot more that I could probably uncover about this upcoming 33rd week of the year. And if you guys have any feedback, you have any thoughts, any decodes of your own, feel free to share it in our Discord. And with that being said, I appreciate every single one of you. Wishing you all a beautiful rest of your weekend in the Matrix. Much love.